Hey, what's going on, RC drivers? Here we are in the new workshop. It's what I'm calling phase one. I've got some paint on the walls, got the TV up back, and some racks with some cars on it. A lot more is going to happen here. Got to get some more slat wall up and really outfit this workshop. But I needed to get some videos flowing, and this buggy right here is what motivated me to get everything going so far. This is a Losi Lasernut U4 rig. Now this is a very cool off-road racer based on the Tenacity platform. And if you are a fan of the channel, you probably know that I really like the Losi Tenacity DB Pro. That is a really cool buggy that I've recommended to a lot of people, and they've responded back with they're really happy with it. But this rig has a lot of the features on there and some really cool new stuff that we need to go over. So let's dive right into it. This is based off of the real Lasernut U4 rig. There are two different versions of it. We've got the carbon fiber red version. There's a blue version of it as well. But this is based off a real rock racing rig that Cody Wagner drives, and it is a very cool representation that Losi did here. Really cool stuff. So let's just start off with the outside of it. Again, this is the carbon fiber red decal style, and they've got a lot of scale detail throughout this rig. Scale is big now. I mean, it's no longer can we just throw some body panels on stuff. We need to have that detail in these rigs, and they went all out here. First up that really caught my eye was all the vent work throughout the body shell here. We've got a front vent on the roofs, on the side panels here, out back. Really just cool look to it. They all bolt into place in the Lexan panels here, and it just gives it a great killer look overall. We've got little tethers up front for the body clips. It's a hinged body just like the DB Pro is, but new cage here, new revised cage, so it gives it more of a scale look. Fuel filler. I notice there's an exhaust on the side, side mirrors. We've got a working LED light bar up top, and then the pods in the front, the two pods here. Inside, it's got a full Lexan interior, but the driver's helmets are separate. They are a molded piece, but what is really cool is they've got the vent hose that's attached to it as well, the breather vent for that, decals on the dashboard. I mean, really amazing job here. Out back, we've got a full-size spare tire. At first, it looked a little wonky, just kind of this big tire hanging out back, but you know what? It's part of the scale look of this machine, and it grew on me really quick. Looks very cool now, in my opinion, but first impression, it was a little large hanging out back there, so we'll see how that thing holds up as well when I'm bashing this thing, and that's really what I'm going to do with it. I mean, you could go out and race this in the unlimited class, but I don't have that around here, so I'm looking at this as a pure basher vehicle. And like the DB Pro, that was a very cool basher. I think this one is going to be even better just by the looks of it. So that's really it about the body. I mean, full cage to really protect this thing, kind of sits into the chassis as well. And one other thing I want to mention while we're out here, and it's really part of the suspension, but this is a sway bar out back. So there's a bar that runs through the cage, and that will really help out with the handling of it. Taking the body off is a little, more than the DB Pro. You got to go and remove the two screws for the hinge in the back, and then the sway bar link screws. I haven't done that, so I'm just going to leave it flipped up here so you can see what I'm talking about. Let's get into the chassis and suspension features, and let's start off with the front. There is a mini front bumper there with a faux winch out front, again, just for that scale detail. And then we get into that Tenacity front end. The front end that Losi has based a number of their vehicles off of. It's got a gear differential in the front. We've got universal axles, really stout arms. We've got 4mm aluminum front shock tower, 12mm bore shocks. The heavy-duty tie rods. The suspension just works really well. The setup is totally dialed in a lot of different applications, from a monster truck to a short course truck, and of course desert buggy, and now even a rock racer. I think it's going to do pretty well out there. Sway bar up front, 12mm hexes. And again, it's really that setup we've been looking for. Ball bearings. And then even out back in the rear of the buggy, again, 4mm shock tower, the 12mm bore shocks, heavy duty arms, universal axles, ball bearings throughout, and it's got a gear differential in the back as rear, oil filled. Now the big changes are kind of in the center section here. This chassis is much longer than the DB Pro chassis, so it kind of cuts off here on the DB Pro, and that's really where the rear clip is. And now you can see it's extended farther out, and of course there's longer dog bones to go and accommodate that, but you still got that center bracing that should keep this chassis nice and sturdy. It's a T66061 aluminum milled out, so it's lightweight, and it does seem pretty rigid. Now, in the center, connected to the center dog bones is a gear differential. It's oil filled, but what is very cool here is it has an aluminum diff cup. So that center differential tends to heat up a lot, and it's nice that they went and put an aluminum cup in there so it doesn't heat up and maybe the pins walk through from the gears on the inside, the gear shafts on the inside. So that is a welcome addition to this vehicle that is going to have some more power to it because it has an upgraded motor in there, and you could run it on 4S. But before I get too far, let's go and break down the electronics. So up in the steering, same twin bell crank steering that we've seen on the 10s before, but now we have a 614 Spectrum servo in there, metal geared. So it's got more torque to it that will swing these larger tires, and I'll get to the tires in a minute. Do have the new Spectrum telemetry receiver mounted to the side of the servo like we saw in the DB Pro, and then the 130 amp Spectrum Smart ESC here as well with an IC5 connector on it. So you could go and link this up to the Spectrum telemetry functions if you wanted to. You could, if you use it with the smart battery, you could go and monitor like your battery voltage, and I'm going to show you the radio in a minute because you could do it right with the included radio or upgrade to Bluetooth later on or use it with any of the other Spectrum radios, so there is that versatility there. And then in the motor department, we've got the Spectrum Firma 1900 kV 550 size motor, so it's got a larger can, longer can than the DB Pro did. It's got to give it some more torque, more power, and they do go and give you 2 pinion gears. They give you a 14 tooth if you go and run it on 3S. You got to change that out, but we're just going to be running this thing on 4S. The battery pack's going to go in this newer cradle that they have, which should be a bit more versatile. They have Velcro straps now, and so if you are running a different battery in here, you have that versatility using the different lengths of a Velcro strap versus just a battery strap that they had before with a clip on there. So I do like that change. That is a pretty heavy duty battery tray there, but that should keep the battery secure. All right, that pretty much makes up the center section and all the changes. Now let's move on to the wheels and tires. So we have licensed BF Goodrich MT tires on here, really nice lug on them, and then they are mounted to licensed Ridgeline wheels with the copper on it, just like the real Lasernut Buggy has. That's very cool, and they're a 2.2 size, just a really large, beefy looking tire that will work, when you're ripping through some rocks or just churning up some dirt, depending on what type of terrain you're driving on. But that's really, I guess, about it when it comes down to it. Again, the major changes here are the body in comparison to the DB Pro, the tires. We've got a new mount out back to secure that rear tire. The hinge pin supports are the same, but they got the metal plates in there, tiny front bumper, which I mentioned before. The hubs, I did look at the hubs, and it looks like they have more of a composite to the plastic than what I've seen before. It may just be the way I was looking at it, but at least it is a composite plastic that they're using throughout on this, which is a much more rigid plastic, and again, should hold up, should aid in the performance of this as well. And the Buggy does feel good, just the way everything is set up. It does look like it's built right. The only issues that I found while looking over the build issues was the body panel here. It wasn't screwed on properly. It looks like they actually drilled the hole too big, and one of the screws over here for the interior wasn't screwed in all the way. So, again, I just want to tell you guys what I'm seeing here. I really went over this Buggy. I'm really into it, so I went over it with a fine-tooth comb, checking it out. Let me show you the other things that it does come with. So it does have the DX3 radio system. I did a review on that. Check it out. This is expandable with the Bluetooth module, and for a ready-to-run radio, it's a pretty good radio. I do like it. 3-channel radio. They also, of course, give you an instruction manual, a little registration card, your usual bunch of tools and stuff, that extra pinion gear I mentioned, And then they give you a little keychain tag, a little dog tag here with the Lasernut logo, the Losi logo, and just where to follow them through social media and stuff. But again, this is a pretty awesome buggy, guys. I'm really just looking forward to going out and bashing it. I don't have any rock racing courses around here, but I think I know the perfect spot to drive it. So I'm gonna head off and we're gonna have some fun with the Losi Lasernut U4. All right, I'm here at one of my favorite test spots. You've seen it before in a bunch of my test videos. It's just a big dirt lot with a bunch of berms and jumps and rocks that are gonna be perfect for that Lasernut U4. So let's go turn it on and see what it could do. All right, guys, so I just wrapped up my close-up shots and now I got a fresh pack in here and we're just gonna drive it around. I'm gonna tell you about how this thing feels, and I gotta spoil it so far. I really love this buggy. I was a huge fan of the DB Pro, but this thing is an absolute blast. It handles so good. It has so much rip. And it has been taking the abuse of this field. Look at that thing. It just tears up the dirt. It just floats over everything. I love the size of the tires on this. It's absolutely perfect. The wheelbase makes it so easy to drive, so good to handle. And the power from the Spectrum gear inside is just killer. I've got the 4S Spectrum pack in there, and this thing just has plenty of rip. Look at this thing. Look how it just floats. Yeah. That's like the third time I've crashed it so far. All right, where is this thing? Look, it's still on all fours. That's one thing that I did notice. It always lands on all four tires for some reason. But I've turned on the AVC. It's still driving great. I just love having, you know, full control of myself, but the AVC does help if you need some assistance. That's a little bit of durability test there. All right, let's rip through this thing. Yeah, look at that air. Oh, and it landed on all fours again. That's awesome. All right, let's another full throttle rip. Look at that thing. Yeah. Oh, I think I heard a little gear click. I was still on the throttle. You shouldn't do that. I was trying to save it. There we go, nice and smooth. Looks like you just got to back off a little bit right before the jump and then punch it, and this thing will just lift the nose up just like that. That's exactly what you have to do. Let off just a touch before jump and then hit the throttle again. It should lift that nose right up. See that? There we go. That's the way to jump this thing. Oh, and it landed on all fours. Love this buggy. Look at the wheelies. Nice and smooth. That one was a full rip, but I'm still suggesting that you give it that little punch at the end. Just lifts the nose right up. Makes it nice and easy to jump it. All right, let's go hit this berm over here. All right, this is an awesome spot just to, you know, throw some dirt around. That's what we're gonna do with the U4. Watch this. Look at that thing. Yeah, a little wide. Those tires grew a little bit, but still under control. Oh. That tire keeps falling off. This is the third time it's happened while I was doing the close-up stuff. This wheel keeps on falling off. All right, so that was the third wheel nut that I've lost on the U4 so far. So I've taken 2 off this DB Pro. And I've actually taken 1 off that arm of granite in my truck here. So I don't know what the issue is. And I've cranked down on this thing as hard as I possibly can. So there we go again. Let's put 1 more wheel nut on, give it 1 more try. But I'm thinking you're gonna have to put some serrated lock nuts with the nylock on the inside, because I'm really not recommending these flange nuts that they have in here. They just seem to come off. So look at that. I am cranking down on this thing. Literally as hard as I can, like as hard as I can. All right, let's go through some of these. Let's go over here. There's a cool spot over here. I want to show you guys how this thing floats over the rocks. See that kind of washed out area right there? That is full of rocks, and this thing just kind of rips through it really scale-like. I really like the way it looks going through this stuff here. So watch this. Just gonna do the half throttle here, and it just kind of floats through that stuff. Doesn't really seem to have an issue. It does redirect here and there, but I mean, it is hitting solid rocks. But it is very controllable. I do like that. Spin it back around. Let's go a little faster. You can see it kicks around a little bit. I mean, it's a U4. It's a U4 rig. It's gonna do that. You just gotta be ready to correct. But I mean, that is pretty controllable right there. Oh, hit that rock head on. This thing has taken some hard hits so far. And that wheel fell off again. All right, guys, that is gonna wrap this up. I mean, that's 4 wheel nuts gone through this so far. I think basically I gotta get a new axle. Maybe the threads are bad on this one axle, but let's head back to the workshop and we could talk about the performance, because I really do like the U4. So I was a really big fan of the Tenacity DB Pro, and I recommended that buggy to a lot of people. However, I'm not sure how much I'm going to be driving that buggy anymore, because this right here, the Lasernut U4, is an awesome off-road buggy. And I know they're a little bit different, you know. I mean, obviously size is one thing and the style is another, but this thing is just awesome, guys. I had an amazing experience with this buggy, and I don't know what I'm about to say is going to convey how much of a good time I had with this. It was really a great experience overall. From the moment I put this buggy down, it just had tons of rip and seemed to handle so well. I mean, to the point where when I did manage to flip it over, it almost always landed on all 4 wheels. I mean, it was just impressive all the way around. All right, let's start off with the steering on it. I did dial down the ABC because I just wanted full control of this, and maybe it had like 10% in there because I didn't back it down all the way. But, you know, I had full control of this buggy. I was just able to carve some really cool, tight corners with it, blast through berms and stuff like that. The steering servo, it has power, it has steering throw. It was just a great, you know, time driving this thing, kind of just ripping through rocks and stuff like that. Definitely had full control when I needed it. Handling, I mean, the Buggy's got some ground clearance, obviously with the larger tires on there. The suspension is set up the same as the DB, but you know that Buggy handled really well, and this thing does too. I mean, I think that sway bar in the back, I was a little concerned about that. It's running through the body cage and stuff like that, but I think it really helped plant this Buggy. Just when I was going through like the rocks and stuff like that, yeah, it would kind of veer a little here and there, but it was still manageable, still controllable. When I would go over jumps, this thing would just float. The landings were nice and plush. I think the setup is just dialed on this thing. It was a bit like cheating out there. That's how good this handling was on this Buggy. They did a great job with it. I mean, what's even cooler is just the way this thing looks. I mean, just ripping through ruts and stuff like that. You know, you got the LED lights shining and everything. You could see the suspension working. It is very, very cool. The power is awesome. I just ran it on 4S. You know, this thing to me just says 4S, and it can handle it. You know, it's got tons of rip on tap and braking too. You know, no issues as far as braking, getting in this thing slowed up for corners and stuff. You know, mostly I was just on full throttle, and it seemed to handle everything just fine. The electronics didn't overheat. It was an extremely hot day. What was really cool was, you know, looking at the transmitter. I was running a smart battery, so I could see how much power I had left on the meter on the top of the radio system. So I really like that feature right out of the box if you have a smart battery in there. And this thing is a beast. I was hitting rocks head on. The front arms are pretty beat up. I didn't break the bumper or anything like that. But there is something I need to talk to you guys as far as durability goes. And this is something that we're going to have to maybe see through. So I was talking to Horizon, and I let them know that my wheel kept falling off. The right rear wheel kept falling off. And I went through 4 wheel nuts. And you guys kind of saw that during the driving portion of it. So there's something going on back there. It seems like the threads are cut properly when I look at them in comparison to the others. I mean, maybe if I had a micrometer, which I usually do, but somewhere, lost during the move, I would put a mic to it to see if the thread height is the same as the others as far as, from one side to the other. So that's an issue. And I don't know exactly what to say. They recommended blue thread lock. I think there is actually supposed to be thread lock on there. So definitely check your rig once you get it. This is an awesome rig. I am highly recommending this rig, but this is something I really want you guys to look for because if that nut does back out, it's definitely going to wreck the hex in there, and there might be an issue where the hex is actually spinning in here because when I took the left rear wheel off, the hex was in the middle. So either make sure the nuts are really, really tight. Actually, that's what you have to do. You have to make sure the nuts are really tight. I'm not a big fan of the nuts that are on there. They're just a serrated flat nut. They don't have a nylock in it. So I would recommend maybe checking out the Team Losi Racing nylock serrated nuts. They have a really good tooth to them. I'll put a part number in the description below. So definitely that might be the fix for this. This is the only issue I'm seeing that may come up during you driving it or something like that. Like I said, I lost the wheel 4 times, stripped out one inner hex here, so I had to use the spare. So anyway, that's it, guys. This machine is awesome, though. It's really worth getting. If that's an issue, you just we'll figure it out all together. I assume. Definitely put some comments in the section below if you do pick one up and you find a solution if you do encounter it, but keep an eye on that. And this is awesome. It is definitely worth it. The handling is so killer. The look is killer. And I really love what Losi did with this thing. It's awesome. All right, guys, thanks for checking out our review. If you haven't done so yet, click the like button, the subscribe button, all that good stuff, and we'll see you back soon for some more RC Driver videos.